Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody and start the program if we could. Good afternoon and welcome. This is certainly a wonderful turnout, and we're very, very happy to have everybody this afternoon. On behalf of the college, as well as the Holy Cross Club of Greater Boston, I'd like to welcome you to this very special monthly lunch. I'm Greg Cahill, class of 1981. Thank you for all being here as we celebrate the publication of Fraternity with author Diane Brady. An exceptional and accomplished journalist, Diane has done all of us a great gift in telling the story of Father Brooks, as well as an extraordinary group of black students, and how their time together at Holy Cross during the late 1960s has helped shape their lives and change the course of history. As one reviewer commented, Fraternity brings to our attention for the first time an unsung hero of the civil rights movement. Another called the book incredibly inspiring, noting that Diane had captured the story not just of a group of amazing black men and their mentor, but of an era. A senior editor at Bloomberg BusinessWeek, Diane first wrote about this time in Holy Cross history in a 2007 article for BusinessWeek, and has worked since then to expand the story into a book. We're delighted that she's here with us today to share her experiences researching, interviewing, and writing Fraternity. And we're equally delighted to welcome Eddie Jenkins, class of 1972, who's right over here to my right, who's naturally one of the prominent men featured in the book. And I have to also, kid Eddie. Eddie, of course, he played for both the Patriots and the Giants. And I don't think he's got the Super Bowl ring on. I hear he had it on in New York last night. But he also, we were kidding him as to who he might be, rooting for, this weekend, and he remarked that he was cut by the Giants. Shortly after he was designated the team's player rep, so I think he learned leadership skills, at Holy Cross, as we all know, carried him right on to the NFL. And now it's my pleasure to welcome Diane Brady, who will offer remarks before opening up the floor to questions. Welcome, Diane.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you so much for coming to this. I want to see, where is Mr. Cahill Sr.? Thank you, who purchased, by the way, 250 books and distributed them to the entire class of 1949, a compatriot of Father Brooks, so thank you very much for that. And I think Eddie got tired from showing off the Super Bowl ring last night, and is officially, in fact, rooting for the Patriots. I don't think we actually established that. So I am a very timid Giants fan in this midst, so I will quickly move on to the book itself. And I thought I would just talk a little bit briefly about why this story intrigued me so much, a little bit about the reporting process, and bring it forward to today, because I think that's what intrigues me, and then just open the floor to questions. And I will admit, first of all, I am sadly not a Holy Cross grad, which is somebody thought just naturally that I must be an alumnus of the school to know this story. The way I came across the story was Stan Grayson, one of the men in the book. We were just having a lunch, and it was the same day that Ted Wells was a front page story in the New York Times. He was representing Scooter Libby at the time, so going way back. And he started to talk about his classmates, the other black classmates. He started to talk about Father Brooks. And I was intrigued. I was partly intrigued because Clarence Thomas was one of those classmates, and I had not read much about the interaction between Justice Thomas and Father Brooks. So that just got me intrigued. I'm a business journalist. It was not a classic business story, but I'm always interested in leadership. I'm always interested in mentoring. And it took quite a while to get Justice Thomas to speak with me, I think in part because he didn't necessarily trust the agenda that I had, which was I would like, in fact, to talk about 1968, 69, 70, those years. And what amazed me was when I did go in to see him, the depth of passion that he had for Holy Cross, the feelings and the emotions he had about Father Brooks. I'm not sure who was at his presentation last week when he got his honorary degree, but that came up again. I think that when you contrast how he feels about Holy Cross versus what he has said about his experiences at Yale, there's a profound difference, and I think one of the big differences was his classmates, and it was the way he felt treated at the college, and certainly the way he felt treated by Father Brooks. And so I basically just set out to do an article. I decided that it was in fact grounds for a book, and I have to say, this being my first book project, I went on all sorts of directions that ultimately didn't work, one of which was lots of history of the Jesuits. Publishers said no, enough of that. A lot about the history of Worcester, which it took me a while to pronounce, like everybody else who's not from the area, not Worcester, Worcester. And ultimately, it came down to the story of these 5 men and Father Brooks. And one thing it meant was, unfortunately, a lot of the people I talked to, I had to diminish their roles in the book. I had to take names out because, again, my editor said, you know what, I'm getting confused keeping track of all these people. Focus on these men, focus on the fraternity they formed, and use that as sort of a microcosm for what they experienced at Holy Cross and what was being experienced, across the country at that time. And I think that there were a couple things that I tried to be careful not to do. One was heighten the drama too much with fake love interests and dialogue. But no, I think the main thing that was important to me, that Holy Cross was both special and unique, but it was a microcosm of what was happening in the country at that time. I am not American. I actually grew up in Scotland. I am half Catholic, but Brady's a very handy name to have when you're reporting at Holy Cross. And, I was always intrigued by this period. I was born in the late 60s and never really fully understood kind of the emotions of the time. The book opens right after Dr. Martin Luther King has been killed. Also, Father Brooks intrigued me as somebody who was a pioneer who went out there and basically circumvented the admissions process. He was very controversial, as you know. Those of you who've read the book and who know him, he's a very strong-willed man, and basically went out in a car with Jim Gallagher, drove to the schools, personally interviewed a lot of these men, not the men who came in through other means, such as Eddie, who came in through an athletic scholarship. And I think, is there a... Oh, am I popping my piece? There. And can everybody still hear me? Probably better. They can. But so, and then sat in a coffee shop one night and decided who was going to get in, the 2 of them. And then he presented a bill to Father Swords, who was the president at the time. It was $80,000, which for a college that had about $1 million in endowment at the time was, quite a cost to bear. So. But what he was looking for, I asked him, how do you decide? Anybody who's a parent in the room knows that intelligence is not necessarily something that is a hallmark of success. It doesn't necessarily lead to success. And when you talk to Father Brooks, he was looking for leadership qualities. He was looking for drive. He was looking for people who had a work ethic, people who were hoping to reach beyond their grasp, black and white. And as you may or may not know, he was also fighting at the time to get women into the college. Sadly, for the class of 72, I think they did not arrive until the fall of that year. And that was after Father Brooks became president and said he managed to shake up the trustee board a little bit and get some people on there that did finally pass a resolution to let women into the college. So I think that when I look at this story, and I'll take your questions, I think what really struck me is when I look at today is first of all, the network. And it's the network of these men. It's called Fraternity because this is not about one man, a priest, a theology professor,